Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about something very important that is pressing in the news right now, and that is the situation between China and Taiwan. And of course, how the United States plays into this. And so this actually was triggered. Everything was triggered on August 1st when Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan and she was threatened by the Chinese government, do not go, or it will be something really big. And so when this happened, this was August 1st, Uranus, Mars, and Rahu were all together with this triple conjunction at 24 degrees of Aries. Now, may I please put up the chart of Nancy Pelosi? Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House for the United States of America. That means she is third in line in power, following the Vice President. And she was warned, do not go, but take a look at her chart. She has the moon at 24 degrees of Libra. This is huge, where this triple conjunction that is so dangerous exactly opposes her natal moon. What does that tell you? She shouldn't have gone to Taiwan, number one. As a matter of fact, she could go to Taiwan, but not during the time of this triple conjunction aspecting her moon exactly. This spells big trouble. So noticing that her moon is at 24 degrees and her Saturn sits at 7 degrees of Aries. The thing that's coming and the thing that's building is all of this is building to a huge crescendo by October. October is the time that all of this is going to unravel, come together. There's one piece to this picture, one thing after another, but by the time we get to the end of October, we're going to see a huge change. Now, what am I talking about with this solar eclipse that happens October 25th? This eclipse happens at 7 degrees of Libra. So that means that it is exactly opposed Nancy Pelosi's Saturn. And that's not good. This means something big is due to happen. Nancy Pelosi's Saturn actually put up President Biden because President Biden's moon sits at 7 degrees of Aries. So Pelosi's Saturn sits on his moon, and the solar eclipse is exactly opposite these 2 points. That's telling you something big is about to unravel here with the Speaker of the House and with Biden. Now, another thing is, remember I've been talking about this eclipse. Well, a few days after, on October 30th, Mars will turn retrograde. So the transit of Mars at this time of the eclipse is stationing. In other words, when a planet turns retrograde or direct, it pretty much slows down and stands still. And any planet that is stationed is so much more powerful. I can't even put a number on it, but it is monumentally more powerful. And what is Mars? I keep talking about Mars. Mars is conflict, war, anger, violence. And when Mars goes retrograde, it brings to the forefront all of these variables. So thinking about where Mars is going to station, which is going to be 1 degree of Gemini, may we please put up the chart now of Xi Jinping, which is President of China. And looking at that, what do we see right around the degrees where Mars is going to station? Look at his chart. His sun sits at 0 degrees of Gemini, where Mars will be stationing. And if you'll notice, his natal Mars sits right next to his sun, which can represent a very angry type nature. And with it being in Gemini, Gemini is a sign that deals with communication. So he's not the easiest and most delightful person to communicate with his Mars and his sun in the sign of Gemini. And not to mention, transiting Mars is going to be sitting on the sun, very close to his natal Mars, but his natal Mars sits at 7 degrees of Gemini. Does that ring a bell? 7 degrees? Yes. The solar eclipse will be at 7 degrees of Libra. Mark that degree mark. And you see, what's interesting about this is Rahu and Ketu, they cast trines. So while Ketu is in Libra, it is casting a trine to both his Mars and his Sun, and actually his Mercury as well that sits there in Gemini. But the eclipse will be exactly casting a trine, which is a connection. In Vedic astrology, we look at all aspects as connectors of the planets. It's exactly casting a trine to his natal Mars. This is important. So these planets, Mars and Sun, in his chart are big triggers. They are in the 12th house. 12th house deals with foreign lands and countries and enemies. And this is not looking too good for Xi Jinping's chart. But note also that natal Mars, might as well put up the United States chart here so you can see what I'm talking about. Natal Mars in the United States chart sits right on Xi Jinping's sun, 0 degrees of Gemini. You see, all the pieces are starting to fit together. And not only that, in the United States chart, the moon sits at 7 degrees of Aquarius. 7 degrees. The 7 is becoming very repetitious. So there is a trinal aspect exactly between the solar eclipse degree and the moon in the United States chart, as well as Mars in Xi Jinping's natal chart. But one more thing to add a lot to this picture. Now let's put up the chart for Taiwan, because Taiwan is the place that we're really concerned about right now. Let's see what's happening. So putting up the chart for Taiwan, the moon, the natal moon sits at 22 degrees of Aries, right opposed Nancy Pelosi's moon at 24 degrees of Libra. And of course that Mars, Uranus, Rahu were all crossing over the moon right about the time that they came together at a complete conjunction within 3 degrees with the natal moon of Taiwan. Now, during the time of this eclipse, that will be at 7 degrees of Libra. It's almost exactly on Ketu in this chart. Sits at 5, almost 6 degrees of Libra. And this is huge. The nodal axis is everything with fate and destiny. And one more thing, when we talk about, when we have an eclipse, the eclipse is going to be 7 degrees of Libra, but I always look at where Rahu and Ketu are. During the time of this eclipse in October, Rahu and Ketu, Rahu will be at 19 degrees of Aries, while Ketu will be at 19 degrees of Libra. But look where Saturn sits in this chart. Saturn sits at 20 degrees of Aries. 1 degree away from where Rahu is going to be stationing at the time of the eclipses. By the way, you may not realize this, but Rahu and Ketu stand still for 3 months around the time of eclipses. So their degree positions are far more important. And it's hitting Saturn. And if this time is right for Taiwan, January 1st, 1912, at midnight, the stroke of midnight, as it becomes the next day, we can say that Moon, Saturn, and Rahu in the natal chart for Taiwan sits in the 8th house. This is the most dangerous and difficult house in a chart and can represent endings and death. So this is huge that we have all of this energy converging on the moon and on Saturn and Rahu in Ketu, Rahu being with Saturn moon in the 8th house of this chart. Another thing that's very interesting, as Mars transits through Taurus between now and till October, and then again November through March, at one point it is going to be crossing over the 1-2 degrees of where there is a very violent fixed star called Agul. And Agul sits about 2 degrees of Taurus. And if you'll notice, it is right on the natal Mars in Taiwan's chart, as well as look at Nancy Pelosi's chart. She has right there at 3 degrees of Taurus, her natal Mars. So if you think this is going to blow over and nothing's coming of it, think again. What I'm seeing is the trigger happened with the Mars-Uranus Rahu conjunction on August 1st with Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. And everything is going to start to unfold from this point on. And by October, we have a difficult situation to deal with. So watch how everything from this point on begins to play out. By the time we're in November, we will have a big situation on our hands. The governments in China, Taiwan, and the United States are going to have to do some serious work here. And hopefully they can work it out. But with Mars going retrograde, it's unlikely. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me, sign up for my free newsletter. And by the way, I have a brand new online magazine that will give you hours and weeks of great entertainment reading about astrology, famous people that are in astrology. Look it up. You're going to be amazed with how much is in this magazine. And it is Joni Patry's Astrology Insights. Check it out for the August issue. It is fantastic. And always remember, if you want to learn Vedic astrology, you go to my university website. So first, my website to sign up for the free newsletter and my magazine is galacticcenter.org. And my university, become a student. Learn how to practice astrology along with me. In my university, go to universityofvedicastrology.com. Thank you.